Hey, I'm Sam Han, and you're listening to the Weldon Green Podcast, a show about performance and esports. Weldon Green is the performance coach and sports psychology trainer for esports athletes focused on helping them optimize their game, learn faster, stop tilting, and get in the zone. Every episode, I bring together questions and answers revolving around a specific topic. In this episode, that topic is fear. But not exactly that kind of fear. More like being scared to hit the play button on a game, or that feeling where your palms get sweaty, your knees get weak, your arms get heavier. For some reason, all you can think about is spaghetti? Maybe that's just me. But we usually talk about this under a label like performance anxiety, stress, choking, and so on. But guess what? You're not alone.
I feel powerless when it comes to ranked because of all the things that you can't control about it. Inevitably, tilt happens, so nothing I can really say or do can fix it. So you're really just stuck hitting /mute all and taking it and letting them rage and tilt and make everything worse these days.
I kind of feel like I'm just going to keep getting close to my promos and then failing to get them, or get on a good win streak and then just keep hitting losing streaks.
I feel an incredible amount of anxiousness when I think about ranked, because I feel like the pressure on each individual game increases exponentially. When you lose one game, it makes it that much more tense in the next game.
Fear can be crippling, and we play games to have fun, to challenge ourselves, and to get that high when we make that spectacular play. We work way too hard to come home and not enjoy playing our video games. So, we want to play solo queue, but we're scared. What can we do about that? Well, let's jump into a question from @Hasagi to my heart. Hasagi asks, how can I get over the fear of ranked solo queue? I'm currently in gold 4 and I feel like I could go far, but I can't press start.
This is a good one because it was hard for me at first. And I want you to be aware that it has to do with just exposure, right? You're not exposed as much to ranked, so it has a greater impact on you. So let's say that you play a lot of normals and then you play some ranked, and ranked makes you stressed and because it's performance, which by the way isn't a bad thing. You probably played better and worse, but mostly you play more activated when you're performing. Performance is a skill, so it's just different from training. Okay, but then if you just only played ranked, like the pros do, they only play ranked, then it doesn't feel like anything anymore. It just feels like a normal game, and then LCS feels like performance, and that's when they get stressed out. They feel the same thing on stage that you feel in ranked. So what I would recommend is what I did, which is just make a rule. Only ranked, nothing else. Can never play anything else except ranked. And people are like, oh, but my rating will tank when I'm having a bad day. Well, I'm sorry, but your bad days and your good days are the same you. You are your bad days. You are your bad days.
My friends were right. I am a feeder.
So your rank should reflect who you are. And if it drops, I'm sorry. I apologize. But that's who you are. Your rank dropped. So your ability to accept that will mature you and strengthen you. And so I just recommend only playing ranked and just dealing with the consequences of that. And eventually you won't care about ranked in terms of the pressure moment anymore. It will just be a game like any other game because you only play ranked. And then you will have to experiment in ranked and you'll have to understand ranked, and you'll have to when I pick a new champion, how do I not tank my rating? Okay, well, you have to understand the principles of the game outside of the champion in order to win a game with a new champion. So you'll start learning those. There's a lot of good reasons to kind of just force yourself to only play ranked. So that's what I recommend.
So, we are to increase the exposure of whatever we are afraid of. In this case, it's playing ranked. Now, this is really tough because our ranking will most likely take a dive and our elo is sacred. But what is our goal? Our goal isn't winning or losing right now. It is overcoming our fear of ranked. Deep breath, deep breath. All right. I can do this. Let's jump into a rank game. I hover over that play button. I click it. Select my 2 roles. And I start looking for a match. Timer clicks and runs down, and a match has finally been found. I press the accept button, everyone loads in, and champion selection starts. But that feeling creeps back in. My heart beats louder, my breaths get deeper, my palms feel cold and sweaty. I lock in my champion, the game starts, and then that fear settles back in. What can I do about this fear? Well, Freakbane asks the same thing. Freakbane asks, how do you bypass the fear of performing in PvP games?
This is a really good question. Hopefully I have a good answer. Let me think about this. The thing that I want to recognize is that the pressure is not a bad thing and it doesn't go away. So accept the pressure. Lean into the pressure. Accept the fact that you will feel the burden and you will feel the pressure to perform, and you will feel bad when you misplay. And these things are emotions that humans have in order to motivate ourselves, in order to make us get more focused, in order to make us excited to train, in order to make us try harder. They're quite natural, and they might go away through exposure. So you'll play a bunch of ranked and they'll eventually dissipate. But that's not a given, and it's also not necessary, because instead of trying to exposure yourself through this and make them go away just through sheer exposure, what you should be doing is saying, I don't care if they're there or not, because I'm just going to accept the pressure and commit myself to playing my style and losing when I lose and win when I win. And one of the ways that I work on it in a very holistic way is to always think about learning. I think about only letting myself play fearlessly. So anytime I'm playing fearfully, I try to reorient myself and say, no, I will learn more if I play fearlessly. You never want to hold yourself back. And then I just make sure that I'm always thinking, okay, I learned. What did I learn? What did I learn from this game, from this situation, from losing, from being outplayed, from losing to these other people who are better than me or worse than me, and I lost them anyway. So that helps you take a holistic long-term perspective. And also, if you don't really care about growing in rank, if you don't care about climbing up the ladder, then you need to think about what did you learn about yourself and that you could apply in your life to make it worthwhile. So if you are well, I'm afraid of playing ranked, and I also don't really care about climbing the ladder, but I want to do it anyway. But learning how to get better at League is not my motivation. Then you want to think about where in life are you called upon to lean into pressure, and the answer is everywhere. And anytime that you train that, it's a good thing. For example, with Fnatic, one thing, and not just with Fnatic, with all of the teams I've worked with, we try to encourage discipline outside of the game. Things like make your food, or put your dishes away, or sit up straight. And by the way, Peter, formerly of CLG, now in TCM, best sitting posture of any League player I've ever worked with. It's amazing. He's just sitting up perfectly straight, and it's not like a horrible super back tension super tight ramrod straight. It's just very casual, kind of I work out and I have muscles on my back, kind of sitting up straight. So if you want to learn how to sit up straight, ask him on Twitter. He'll send you a picture. Actually, I think I have a picture of him from the back. I was so impressed. I was I gotta take a picture of this. Oh my god, that sounded really bad. Anyway, moving on. What was I talking about?
Hold on, Weldon. Since you're already on a tangent, I might as well go on one myself. Cue music. If you aren't aware, Weldon is the creator of the MAC program, aka the Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment program, containing 7 weeks of material to help you gain mental resilience, improve your focus and performance, and become a mindful warrior. It has been successfully used with esports clubs that include Copenhagen Wolves, Counterlogic Gaming, and Team Solo Mid, as well as a number of individual athletes. So, if you want to help increase your resilience against things like anxiety or fear, try out the MAC program using the link mindgames.gg/MAC, located in the episode description. FYI, topics in this episode will be relevant in all 7 weeks of the MAC program. Now, Weldon, where were you?
Right. Leaning into the pressure. So you can learn things in life through discipline that you can apply in the game. by applying that discipline. And likewise, you can discipline yourself to approach fearful situations and be brave. And then you can do that when you're at a bar and you need to go ask a girl out, or when you are in a class and you want to ask a professor a question that you didn't hear, and you want to say like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you tell me again?" So those things are possible. Please take advantage of them. Please see it as a holistic system of life in which you are growing as a person when you throw yourself into these pressure situations. And that is how I overcome the fear, is that you don't. You never bypass the fear. You go through the fear.
You never bypass the fear, you go through it. Whew. And it's okay to feel fear, nervousness, anxiety, and pressure. They're not bad, and we can really expect them to be there. So, as we increase our exposure to our fears, we need to find ways to channel our emotions, to keep us focused and motivated on our long-term goals, like learning and getting better. We need to accept that fear will be present, and that's okay. And we are to play through our fears, not bypass them. Now, I want to make sure I reach those goals, and I am overcoming my fears to do so. But those goals are hard, which leads us to the next question. Autumn Johnson asks, how do I get over a fear of falling short when I'm trying to achieve goals, whether personal or work related?
I had to really amp myself up. So I have a constant fear of falling short and being perceived as short. And I think that's the real thing. It's not so much falling short ourselves. Like, if I look at my 3-year-old doing puzzles and he can't figure it out, he doesn't even care. But then when he notices I'm watching him, then he's like, gets all like, this doesn't fit. Where does this go? Because he's in the moment and failure means nothing. Then like when when we have it perceived upon us, that's the real issue our brain has. So I think that like, how do you get over the fear of being perceived as falling short is the question that I always wrestle with. And it's not something that's really solvable. I think that you can reduce it. There's 2 ways to reduce it. One is normalization. So like you just do whatever you're doing over and over again until you get used to that moment and you're not afraid. You have competence that's been risen up. And so your competence tells you you're not going to fall short. And so then you don't. So that's the one kind of way to tackle it. That's kind of automatic within our biology. And then the other thing is that you can kind of find ways to reduce the build-up anxiety. So you have the fear of falling short, and then you dwell on it, and you think about it, and you like build it up into this huge thing, and you imagine all the consequences and all the horrible things that could happen, and it becomes a much larger thing than it actually is. So you got to kill that chain, and it's a really good thing to like practice breathing and mindfulness and all the things that like get you just focused on the moment, and then you only have just the fear of falling short, like the fear of that moment, and none of the extra buildup. And that is a very manageable emotion. That is something that you can like decide, I'm going to do this, oh my gosh, and then you can like jump into it, and actually you get kind of perverse joy out of the act of resisting that emotion in the end. One example I have is that I went to a investor conference recently, and I didn't have a booth or any position, so I had to pitch people walking around on the floor. I had to just like pick a random person who was walking by and like start pitching them about a business idea. And that's really very nerve-wracking. You feel kind of like a con artist or something. And the first day I managed to do 1. And then I went home and I was like, this isn't going to work. Obviously, I want what I'm doing here, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So why can I not get over the fear of talking to these people who are just wandering around and asking them about if they want to give me a bunch of money? And the thing that I did overnight was I connected with my values. I tried to decide that my values, the things that I valued about that experience, about myself, about the journey, about being there that day was greater in power than the things that were holding me back. And then I would go onto the floor and I would think like, okay, I want the result of this. I know that this emotion is going to be frustrating, and you can't really get over the fear of falling short. Like, it's not going to go away. It's always going to be there, so you have to kind of overpower it a little bit. So I would say I really value the result of this, and I know that like there's only psychological harm that's going to happen. Like, none of these people are going to punch me. They're probably not even going to feel ill of me. They're mostly going to feel bad themselves because they're like, oh, I feel so bad. You know when you turn those people down on the street that want money for their whatever cause, like the Dolphins and whatnot. And you always feel a little bad. You're not really annoyed at them. You're kind of annoyed at them, but mostly you feel guilty, like, oh, I should be the kind of person who does that, but I'm not. So leave me alone. So we make it all about ourselves, and it's really not. Like, it's always all about ourselves for everybody else too. So they're just thinking about themselves. So you can use those kind of like rationalization mechanisms to get over that and then dive into the moment. And once you're in the moment, usually it goes pretty well. It's the start that's the hard part. Once you've started, half the work is done. I think that's a Marcus Aurelius quote.
Yes, once you've started, half the work is done. I had a similar experience as Weldon. I was at the Chicago Theater during the League of Legends 2016 Worlds quarterfinals with 500 business cards printed out to try to plug my other podcast, League of Legends Anonymous. Yeah, that's a shameless plug. The first day, I passed out 0 cards. I had a fear of failing, plus way too much built-up fear. Weldon mentions competence. I know that speaking off the cuff isn't my best skill, but I know that I can formulate words and my thoughts pretty well if I put the effort and time to prep. I didn't do that, so unfortunately, that was kind of out the window. But we all have experienced a time where increasing our competence led to the reduction or elimination of our fear. Competence was the difference between that school presentation we got a C on and the one that we got an A on. If I had that confidence because of my competence, the only thing holding me back would have been all those built-up fears. Now, those built-up fears of me asking myself, are they going to think I'm weird? Or they don't care about my dumb podcast? Or what if they hate the podcast? Or even worse, what if I sound like a babbling idiot? Yeah, all those thoughts were pointless, limiting, and honestly irrational. The first night I passed out 0 cards. Before the second night of quarterfinals, I thought about all the effort I put into making my podcast, all the time, effort, and money I spent putting into designing the cards, and then how this event was a perfect and an easy opportunity to expand my audience. After that, like Weldon said, the hardest part was starting. Finally, by talking to, 3 groups of people, I had increased my exposure to what I was afraid of. I got into the flow, and I actually gained competence just through practicing a few times. And the thing is, my mind wasn't fearful anymore. It was filled of things like, who haven't I talked to yet? Why? Because I almost talked to everyone at the venue. I had some fun conversations. I got to talk to people about League. I talked about my passion for podcasting and helping others get better at League of Legends. But it took a few big steps, and half of that was just starting. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is for those of you that are having performance issues outside of ranked. Maybe you're part of some type of organized league. You play in a college club, a tournament, a LAN, or you're just 1v1ing a friend in a custom game. It might not be something you do a lot. You can't really increase your exposure to it because there are less opportunities to become acclimated to those pressures, fears, and nerves. So, I'm Stalgia asks, I'm a mid-challenger, but when I scrim with challenger teams, I feel like I forget how to play and I'm really nervous.
Okay, really good question. So, essentially, this is the difference between training and performance, training and stage. And the human body is activated by performance in a way that it's not activated by training. And so you have to expect that as you find yourself in performance situations, there's essentially 2 ways forward through that. One is that you become so accustomed to them that they don't cause the same change in you as much anymore. And an example of that is if you just play ranked and nothing else, then eventually ranked won't feel like ranked anymore. It won't feel like that pressure of performance. It'll just feel normal. It's just like a normal game. Then you only get that pressure like when you step up and you're scrimming with a challenger team. But if you scrim all the time, then scrimming stops feeling like performance, because actually it's not. And then it's not really, it doesn't feel like performance again until you, like, for example, play in a LAN. And then for some people who play LANs all the time, start playing in a LAN, even for like like big results, or maybe mediocre or small results, doesn't really feel like performance anymore because they do it so much. And then they step on stage and it feels like performance. So one thing that your brain can do is just get accustomed to that performance, and the consequent drop in the reaction of your body will just make it more at ease. So just scrim more with challenger teams. The second thing you need to realize is that the ability to cope with that kind of physiological change is really essential, and it's a skill you can train by practicing coping, because eventually you'll get to a performance level that is just performance, where you cannot accustomize yourself to it, that you're stepping on stage and you're stepping on stage, period. And you're never going to kind of get over the feelings that give you that rush or that awareness. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, those are useful chemicals, adrenaline and breathing rapidly to get more oxygen into your body and all these sort of things. So you need to be able to cope with them and lean into them and use them to heighten your awareness instead of having it cause you to be distracted by what your body is doing and causing you to perform worse. So try to funnel a little bit that fuel, that energy into your actual performance. And one way that I suggest that people get used to that is ramping up the pressure on themselves in a non-pressure situation. So you get into a training environment, you get to a scrim, and you let the pressure kind of like weigh on you, and you force it to scale up the importance of the moment. So you're like, okay, this trade, this like level 2 trade, this is everything, and I have to execute on it. And you put that pressure on yourself, and then win or lose the trade, you deal with the results of that kind of in the game, and you practice it. So if you lose the trade, you're like, okay, gotta focus, gotta move forward, gotta move to the next one. Or if you win the trade, you're like, okay, don't get distracted by the victory. And those are kind of like mental and physiological, so biological and bioneurological, like coping techniques or skills that you need to compete at a high level. Good luck.
All those nerves we feel, well, biologically they can be helpful, but we have to learn how to harness them. Since we can't increase our exposure to these performance situations, we do our best to mimic them by putting some stakes on the line in other situations. Some extra emphasis on those small things. For example, this game, I'm going to do a level 2 all-in. That means no matter what happens, whether I have half health, down a summoner spell, or they have more minions, I'm going to put that additional pressure on myself to perform until that level 2 all-in. Ooh, that sounds exciting. Fear. Why does it have to be so crippling? Why can't playing a video game be fun and enjoyable? Well, now we have the first steps to overcome that fear, that nervousness, those anxieties. Fear should be afraid of us because we have the tools to overcome it. Yeah, I know, that's a little cheesy, but seriously, remember, fear is okay and it will be there. We just need to get used to it. And it might not go away completely, but we definitely can minimize its effect on us. I want to close out this segment with a quote from an American politician, diplomat, activist, and formerly a First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt. It goes like this. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I've lived through this horror. I've carried bad teammates before and I can do it again. Did you not know she played League? Welcome to the Weldon Journey, the part of the show where Weldon talks about whatever experiences and thoughts he wants to talk about. Currently, it is week 3 and 4 of the EULCS Spring Split 2017 as an assistant coach for G2. Here's Weldon.
Okay, so third week of the LCS, I'm in Berlin. Came in Monday morning, usually leave at like 4 a.m. From the house and get to Berlin around 9 a.m. So it's around a 5-hour trip all told. That's including like the 30-minute taxi to the airport, waiting for the flight because you can't show up right on time. You got to show up early. The 45-minute, 30-minute flight to Helsinki, sitting there for an hour, maybe an hour and a half for the next flight, and then the 2-hour flight to Berlin. And then it takes about 30 minutes to go from the airport to my office, where leaguecoaching.gg is. And this is the week I was producing kind of our first content with Runtime. If you check out runtime.gg, basically these two awesome guys, Marcel and Roman, created a meal replacement for esport. I want you to understand how genius this is. If you think about the most annoying thing ever when I'm playing video games, it's having to go make food. It's so awesome when somebody creates food for you and then you can go eat dinner or something and then run back to the game. But imagine, like, it's even better if just like the plate is like brought to you with food on it and it's healthy, right? So literally the most annoying thing is having to stop like a campaign or a game or be in the middle of a session of training or just playing for fun or whatever, and you have to go like make food and then eat it. And usually people default to just unhealthiness, right? Like Hot Pockets and stuff like that. If you think of Magic the Gathering, I think of all the times when I just had a quick Hot Pocket and got back to the draft. So it's just like, oh, if when I was growing up, there was like a meal replacement thing where you just like shake it up and drink it there at your station, and it's like 100% nutritious and better for you than like 99% of stuff aside from a real meal. Aside from just real food, it's like better than everything else that's out there, and like it even kind of matches that on some level, depending on like how good a cook you are. It's incredible. So it's called Buff Food, and right now, actually, or that week, we were kind of getting the first shipments, and it was on sale, and I've been using it myself for pretty much all of January and February. So we're creating a podcast, Marcel and I, because he's a biohacker, health nut. I'm a scientist. I'm not really a biohacker. I'm more interested in physiology of performance, and I wouldn't consider myself a health nut. Maybe I am. I don't know if I compare myself to other people. Maybe I'm a health nut, but whatever. Anyway, we're doing a podcast together, so that's what we're doing that week, and we faced giants. So I was trying to make sure that we had our gratefulness habit kicked off. This is the thing. So gratefulness is essential for motivation. Like, a lot of the problems that stem from burnout and lack of motivation, you can fix with gratefulness conditioning, both because it's a powerful mindset to kind of wrap yourself in, but also because it actually changes your brain. It actually improves how your brain handles adversity and resilience and makes it more resilient. So gratefulness conditioning is like the easiest bang for your buck that you will ever find in terms of mental training. I would say mental training, but it's really just like a way of kind of approaching how you view the world as it passes you by and as you exist in it. You can either not notice it, take it for granted, and have expectations, or you can notice it and appreciate it and be in a state of gratefulness for it, in which case you're much more resilient when things don't go your way, or your perceived way, I would say, even though most of the time they go the way that they're going to go, and it's just like our frustration with that kind of separation from reality that is the problem. So gratefulness conditioning steadies the motivation. I want you to think of like a team of 5 people, right? They all have different motivation cycles. Some are high motivation, some are low motivation. And one of the biggest problems that you have in sport when you're playing on a team is that those cycles are not going to be locked together. It's not going to be everybody is extremely motivated and everybody is horribly motivated. It's going to be like 2 people are really motivated and 3 people are under motivated. And then they switch places. So one way that you handle that is like training. You increase training volume, burn people out, draw back, and recover them. So you get everybody kind of like on the same period. Like as if there were a bunch of women living together and they synced up their periods. But the other thing you can do is just do gratefulness and like level everything off. Like get everybody to a basic level where they're either like really high or they're just normal. And that's my preferred method. I do both actually, but it was really nice in TSM to see that it functioned really well in esport, just like it does in other sports. So that was like one of my big test beds, and we're doing the same thing in G2. That was the week we focused on it. We focused on kicking it off so that it's a sustainable habit. And I like to add one thing at a time, I+1. So you take one thing and you add it to the pile. Once that is a habit and it's maintenance, we take another thing we add to the pile, because we're dealing with elite athletes. So they're already pushing themselves to stretch their limits in the game and training every day. And I try to help them perform better by taking things off their plate and just managing them, rather than trying to create extra discipline around a life that's already kind of jam-packed with high performance. Week 4 of the EULCS, this was my doubleheader. So this was really hard because I stayed all the way until game was over, so about the 3rd of February, and then the next day I flew back home, and I was home for the rest of that day, and then Sunday and Monday, and I kept the kids home from daycare so I could hang out with them, and then Tuesday morning I went to Berlin because we had 2 games that week, and I wanted to sync up my schedule, kind of do a doubleheader and get that synced up. So I did one before the season because I was trying to sync it up. Then I need to realize I needed to change that because of IEM Katowice and the vacation break and this doubleheader and vacation break, like the week that the 2 weeks you have off from the LCS, or the 1 week they have off from the LCS. I didn't want to be in Berlin during that. I wanted to be in Jyväskylä during that. And then there's like winter break in Jyväskylä, which I need to be here because the kids are out of daycare. So I had to do another doubleheader. It really felt like I was home forever. Those 2 days were super intense. All in, cut off all communication with the outside world, kind of like no phone. I didn't keep very well to that. Like I had to still use my phone a bit, but I did a decent job. And it was really hard to actually adjust back to the mind space of being back in Berlin on Tuesday. Like I didn't have a full week to reset, so I was back and I was questioning everything I was doing, questioning, why I was here in Berlin, why I was pursuing this business, why I was doing elite performance coaching, just everything. It was super tough. For 2 days, I was very unproductive. And then I kind of got back into it gradually, made some content that helped, connected with you guys, with the fans of Mind Games. That helped. Got some nice messages of people whose lives, were fundamentally changed by my message. That helped. And kind of got the kick back into it. And of course, the performance was coming up. We were competing against, who was it that week? I believe it was H2K, right. It was H2K and Origin. That's why I wanted to come back, because it was a doubleheader. So I wanted to stay at doubleheader, like a double week stint. So H2K was a real challenge. It was a hard match. Well fought as well. And then Origin was everything that I hoped it would be in terms of satisfaction. And apparently there was a lot of bad blood. Not bad blood, but like rivalry blood, between the two sides, because they're both Spanish owners. So there's a little bit of contention there, and so it was really satisfying, of course, to win that match. It's kind of like when TSM faces CLG. There's a little bit of a grudge match when Double Us faces old team on TSM, and then in this case it was Mythians Van face their old team. A little bit of a grudge match going on. Rivalries are when you have 2 equally skilled opponents and they push each other. That's a rivalry. Grudge match is when it doesn't matter if the opponent is good or the opponent is bad. You just are satisfied when you beat them. Rivalries don't work when the other team sucks. Like C9 TSM is a rivalry. So when C9 is bad and you play them in your TSM, you're just like, okay, whatever. It's just a match. When C9 is good and TSM is good, then it's a rivalry. Everybody loves it. CLG and TSM, that's a grudge match, right? So it doesn't matter if CLG is complete junk for the split or if they're on top of the world and TSM is complete junk. One of the teams feels really good about the victory because they just want to beat each other, right? So I really see Origin G2 as a grudge match. Like, it doesn't matter if Origin is bad right now. I'm sure they'll get better, but it still feels really satisfying to win. It's not like a rivalry where your opponent have to be good to make it satisfying. That week we really, made sure and doubled down on the gratefulness and taught a new topic, which was internal states. The idea that you have an internal state and it governs your actions. Behavior is controlled by emotions. But we want our behavior to be controlled by values. We want our behavior to be value-driven, which is a lot harder. The reality is that when you're frustrated at a teammate and then you play badly, and then you lose the game, playing badly is the behavior, losing the game is the result, and being frustrated with your teammate is the emotion. So the emotion of being frustrated with a teammate drives the behavior of playing badly. You can actually disconnect that. You can say, I'm frustrated with my teammate and I'm going to play well. I'm going to focus and get over the frustration. Not get over it, I'm going to ignore it and have clarity and focus really hard and play at a significant, uptick compared to when I'm frustrated. And then all of a sudden the result changes, right? So you have the same emotional state. You don't control the emotion, you control your behavior, which really means you control where you put your focus and your attention. And then you change the result. So we talked about the disconnect between behavior and result. So the behavior drives the result. That's 100% locked in. but the emotion drives the behavior, that's not. You can actually interrupt that. You can replace it with a value-driven behavior if you're strong enough in terms of willpower, in terms of mental capacity, in terms of mental resilience and strength. So essentially, what we're working on from now on is that action of being incredibly consistent, of taking whatever emotional state we have and accepting it, and then driving our behavior based on a concrete set of values that we explore as a unit. So that takes a really strong brain muscle, you'd say, and the workout for that is mindfulness. So essentially, we were laying the groundwork for the act of mindfulness, which is when you notice the emotion and notice the behavior that it drives, so you can get in there in between the two and like split them apart and then choose your own behavior.
The Weldon Green Podcast used songs from PlayOnLoop.com, SoundsLikeAnEarful.com, ChillHop Records, and Jack Tung. This episode was edited by the two Sam Turnberg and me. Special thanks to the people who sent in questions to the Ask Weldon show and the three guys that shared about their ranked anxiety: Stephen Meese, Victor Z, and Adam Kufalt. The rest of the audio you've heard is from Sam Hahn, Riot Games, and of course, Weldon Green. And if you've enjoyed the show, we would really appreciate it if you subscribe so you can be the first to hear the next episode, and help spread the word by sharing via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and whatever other ways you can. Again, my name is Sam Hahn, and you've just listened to the Weldon Green Podcast.